Hello, everyone. You're listening to Those Other Girls with Mallory and Friends. I'm Mallory.
I'm Victoria.
And I'm Sebastian King, the Carolina conservative.
Yeah, Sebastian's rebranding away from the Republican nerd, sad, to the Carolina conservative. We should do a poll and see what the viewers like better.
Vote Carolina conservative.
Oh, we should.
Please vote Carolina conservative.
Oh, I'm going to make sure everybody votes.
Republican nerd sounds funny.
Republican nerd. Oh, man. All right. Well, it's another week of the We Believe series. Sorry, this is coming out a day late.
Oh, actually, sorry. Really quick.
Yeah.
These views are our own, and they
yes.
do not represent anyone else. Continue.
Yeah, babe, we realized we should have done that a long time ago. Anywho. Yeah, so this week on our We Believe series, we are so sorry we're a day late. Mallory started a new job this week, and which is exciting. First big girl job. Welcome.
Congratulations.
I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that on our weekly recap that comes out tomorrow. So we'll get an update on how your first week went. Anywho, so we're talking about voter ID laws. So we believe in fair elections. Is that the right way to say it, you think? Sebastian?
Yeah, absolutely. Fair elections that everyone's
fair, legal, and safe.
Elections.
Fair, legal, and safe. I agree with that.
Awesome. All right. So we all live in North Carolina. There's a big trial. So Sebastian, you want to give us a brief history of voter ID in North Carolina, and then I will give the update on what's going on this week with voter ID.
Yeah, so during my time working in the General Assembly for Representative Harster, we, as in the legislature, passed a constitutional amendment to put voter ID on the ballot and let North Carolinians, not politicians, decide should elections be safe and secure. North Carolinians overwhelmingly passed voter ID with a 55% approval rating.
In 2018.
In 2018. So fast forward to I think it was in 2018 after it was the election for 2018.
Yes.
That a judge
I think it was 2019, early 2020, because there was no voter ID in we should have.
That's right. I'm getting my years confused now. Okay, yes. So 2019, a judge came out, one judge, and ruled it unconstitutional. Think about that. That is not how our system's set up. One judge usurped the votes of 2 million North Carolinians. So obviously, it's working its way through court still. Victoria's going to give a recap. So voter ID was not on law or in our Constitution because this judge took it off the Constitution of North Carolina. So in 2020, we did not have safe elections. We didn't have secure elections. There were people voting without showing an ID. There's been a lot of upsetness about that. We've seen the president talk about that across the country. And fast forward to now where it's still in trial and litigation. We're actually in court this week about it, and Victoria can give a recap about that.
Which I will, before the recap, say when I think all of us worked polls, I can tell you how many people started walking back to their car because they forgot their ID to vote. And I'm like, oh no, you're good. You don't need an ID to vote. I can't tell you how many people don't know that you don't need an ID to vote.
Yeah. I feel like more people know now, but the time, for sure.
Well, even in 2020 when the midterms prior, it was on the ballot. There's so much media attention about it. There's been so much media attention about it since 2018, and people still are not aware that in North Carolina, you don't need an ID to vote. But
I guess it's, you can read it in a second, but I was just going to say, I guess it all comes down to something that we'll get into, but you need an ID for almost everything. Mm-hmm. Even taking the LSAT, I mean, they were super... okay, you have to have this, your ID, everything you do.
If you want to pull this up, Mal, while I'm reading this, I think Caroline Craig had a really good graphic on her Instagram story of everything you need a voter ID for. So in North Carolina, there's a multi-day trial starting. It started Monday, April 12th, and a lawsuit challenging the state's 2018 voter ID law. Senate Bill 824. Lawmakers approved that bill to implement the constitutional requirements. Critics say the voter ID law unfairly targets Black voters. At the close of evidence, plaintiffs believe that you'll agree with us that the mountain of circumstantial evidence is so overwhelming that no alleged neutral justifications can overcome that mountain, said Allison Riggs of the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. She's the lead attorney representing plaintiffs in the case. At the end, you'll conclude that North Carolina once again enacted an unconstitutional law, a voter ID law designed to keep Black voters from the ballot box, Riggs added during her nearly 45-minute opening argument. The law's defenders pointed to some inconvenient facts for Riggs and her clients. Among those facts, some Black Democrats voted for the disputed bill. You wouldn't see the support from Democrats, from African-American Democrats, if Senate Bill 824 really were weaponized for political entrenchment of the opposing party, said David Thompson, an attorney representing Republican legislative leaders. Legislative Republicans also mounted a defense of the law in the court of public opinion. The requirements for voter ID is in the North Carolina Constitution. In 2018, North Carolina voters opted to amend their constitution to require photo voter ID, according to a news release from Senator Paul Newton from Cabarrus County. Reasonable people can have reasonable disagreements, but whether a voter ID is a good policy, but that debate is over. The Constitution requires voter ID. The law implementing voter ID was sponsored by an African-American Democrat, Newton's release added. News coverage of the voter ID law almost always quotes left-wing activists who accuses the bill sponsors of racist, yet that coverage almost never informs readers that one of the bill sponsors is an African-American Democrat. Reporters should take care to note that fact, not bury it. So that's kind of what's going on right now.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. And can we start off with this, which is, I think, probably the senator they were talking about, which was Senator Ford at the time. He's now on the Board of Governors for the UNC system. But he tweeted about this today during testimony, and he testified with the Republican lawmakers for voter ID in North Carolina. He tweeted this today and said, "Stop it. When you say voter ID laws are racist against Black people." Translation: Black people are not smart enough to figure out how to get free identification. And what he's saying is that's just foolish. That's not accurate. And what he's saying really is it's racist to even say that. I've heard that argument several times, that African Americans aren't smart enough to get a free ID. That's preposterous. And I agree with former Senator Ford. I think he's speaking the truth. And it takes a lot of courage to do that as a Democrat, because the far left is very radical now, and they don't want safe and secure elections.
Yeah, and that was always strange to me, because you need an ID to do just about anything. When people have problems with this law and I have problems with the Georgia law,
But I agree. You said those people had issues with the Georgia law, but you know why they probably had issues with the Georgia law? Because they didn't read the Georgia law. A lot of people have come forward and said they haven't even read it when they've publicly criticized it. Note for those other girls: read the bill before you comment on it. Come on, let's have some common sense and do our homework before we follow the herd of public opinion when it's completely false.
So, go ahead, Mel.
What I was going to say is what you were talking about, Caroline, tweeted about the things you need an ID for. So it's healthcare to drive, buying or renting a house, buying alcohol, buying cigarettes, certain medicine, 5-hour energy. She didn't say that, but I remember I had to have an ID to get that when I turned 18. Going on an airplane, Medicare, Medicaid, applying for a job, getting married, joining the military. Like, these are just things that just normal average people need an ID for. My grandma actually never got her license. I don't really know why, but she had an ID. It's not because I know another thing is sometimes people can't get a car because X, Y, and Z. But it's free. You can get an ID. It's not that difficult.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, okay, so if voter ID is racist, are all African Americans homeless and not receive
Right.
like is it like all homeless? Are they not able to buy alcohol, and are they not able to what was to get married?
To get a job. Or you
Get
say
a
they can't get
job.
jobs?
Well, here's my thing is we do all these things. I just flew to Texas and flew back, and we show our ID and we don't even think about it because we expect it. We want to feel safe when we fly, that the people that are showing up to the airport are who they say they are, and then they go through TSA and are screened. Look, American Airlines came out against the Georgia vote, and I had half the mind to go there and say, look, if they feel so strongly about it, why don't you stop requiring IDs to fly and then let passengers decide if they want to fly on your airplane when people aren't verified who they are, and no one would feel safe getting on that plane. So why are we having elections that determine the future of our country, the future that our kids are going to have? Why can't we have the same safety and security in place for our elections? It's common sense. Majority of North Carolina, 55% of North Carolinians agree with that. And it makes the most sense to have voter ID to ensure people are who they say they are. And it actually protects those votes of people too. So that's often not talked about enough. Is I've had several people come up to me, Republican and Democrat, that said, I went to vote, and they said, I already voted. And they knew for sure they hadn't voted yet. So you're disenfranchising potentially all kinds of people when they're not able to vote and someone else votes for them.
I mean, we know someone whose dead parent in Nevada, who's been dead for like 20 years, voted this election.
Crazy.
Yep. All right, so we're going to actually break down Georgia's election law. So we talked a little bit about North Carolina's, but the big one that a lot of people are talking about is the new Georgia election law that was implemented after the crazy runoff election for the U.S. Senate in Georgia. And I think a lot of us are familiar with what happened, but what was crazy in my opinion was how people who didn't even live in Georgia were able, because they found a loophole in their law, were able to go and vote in Georgia. Is that right, Sebastian?
Yeah. So essentially what happened was, it's my opinion that, those, if there's a runoff election, those who were already registered to vote prior to the first election should be the only ones who are able to vote the second election. People were flocking to Georgia, switching their residency and voting. I think that's wrong. It's not how it's intended, and that's the loophole you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. Go ahead, Mallory.
I was going to say, I remember seeing on both sides, to be honest, Republicans did this too, but I remember seeing signs like, oh, if you turn 17 by December, or if you turn 18 by December, even if you're not registered, even if you didn't vote before, you can still register to vote. And I agree with Sebastian. I think, it would be nice specifically if they voted for the Republicans. But I don't think it's very fair. If you didn't vote in the first one, then you shouldn't be allowed to vote in the second one.
See, I'm not too opposed with the idea if you turn 18 by the time of the runoff election. I had an issue with people moving there and changing their voter registration. Because correct me if I'm wrong, I thought in North Carolina, you have to be a resident for a certain amount of time before you could vote, correct?
I think it's like 90 days or 30 days, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, to prevent stuff like that. And so, I'm not that opposed to, I get what you guys are saying, but I do think it's okay if you turn 18 by the time you are an adult, you legally can vote. But I have an issue if you are moving just to vote, like you're changing your residency, like not actually moving places, so just changing your residency to vote, that I have an issue with.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I just feel like if you didn't have anything to do, like the reason why it's in a runoff is because of X amount of people. So if you didn't have anything to do with that, then like maybe, I don't know, you should have been born earlier. I don't know. Like that's impossible. But you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I think that if it's any other, like If there's like a special election, maybe, but like not a runoff. I think a runoff should just be the people. And I also think like if you didn't vote, like I don't know how they would do this, and this is just me, but like if you decided, you know what, I'm not going to vote because X, Y, and Z, and now it's a runoff, and you're like, oh, I should really vote. I don't think you should be able to vote then either, because once again, it's between the people who actually voted. But that's just my opinion.
But aren't you also going to get people who voted and they're not going to come to vote?
What'd you say?
Like people are who voted in the first one, they're not going to come to vote. Like there's going to be a lot of people that won't come to vote in a special election.
Well,
most of the time.
They should.
Yeah.
But that's a fair point, because you're right then, because if we eliminate every extra person, then there'll be like 3 people voting. That's a fair point.
Yeah, it'd be the people who the people who are running and their families.
And then people like us.
Yes. But all right, so let's break down Georgia's voting law. So this was signed into a bill on March 31st, and it will go into effect on July 1st. So special ballots will be created for nonpartisan elections. Ballots must be printed in black and white ink on security paper. A cutoff date of 11 days before a primary, general election, or runoff election for mail-in ballot applications. A deadline for the issuance of absentee ballots at least 25 days before a federal primary, general election, or special election, or 22 days before a municipal general election or primary. A Georgia state driver's license number, ID card, date of birth, and the last 4 digits of your social security number or another approved form of identification must be presented on the outside of an absentee ballot. Conditions for rejecting absentee ballots if certain requirements are not met. And then it goes into I think if I recall, so early voting was cut down a little bit, which I'm sorry, we worked like 2.5 weeks of voting. After the most people that come out is day 1 and day 2, or the last day. Sorry,
yeah,
it's really and I hate to say it, but it's a waste of time and resources. Give us 7 days, so someone's gonna have off at least one day. In my opinion, if I don't know. Heck, let's just make it a federal holiday. I'm all for making election day a federal holiday.
Why isn't it? Do we know why? Just because it's not, or
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on that point, but look, I mean, I miss the days. I wasn't old enough to vote yet, but a lot of people talk about it is, you voted on election day or your candidates, and then you found out that same day who was going to be the president or who was going to be your representatives. We need to go back to that thing, not where they're waiting overnight, weird stuff's going on, people leave, come back, they find ballots like they did in Durham. It's really weird. It puts non-trust in the process, and we need election security and we need confidence in the election system, which I think the best time to do that is everyone goes and votes is on election day. I'm okay with a few days of early voting, and but we definitely need to find the results out that night of. We're in the 21st century. We're in the technology age. People should be able to, utilize technology appropriately and get election results that night, so people can know who their presidents or their president and their representatives are, and so they can have confidence in the system. This whole waiting months and weeks and stuff, I don't think that's going to fly in the future.
Yeah, I mean, in North Carolina, we had 15, 16 days of early voting.
Yep.
And I think we were out at the polls almost every day. And towards the end, I think we were waiting at least 10 to 15 minutes per person. Like there was no line.
Yeah, I think that the myth of you'll be in the line because, I don't remember if you mentioned it, but there's you can't have the water bottle thing. I think it's just a myth. I mean, I've never heard of anyone waiting like 3 hours in line and they're so thirsty, they absolutely need water. And I'm not saying that that doesn't necessarily happen, but I definitely don't think it's like a super common thing. most people, I feel like, so I will admit, I've never been in North Carolina during an election. So I've always done absentee ballot. But I mean, I remember when I was younger going with my parents to the kids vote. I want to say I went with them like twice. And I don't remember standing in line for that long. Like, it's not this long, drawn out process. And one thing that I think people talk about, this is kind of transitioning, but kind of in the same vein, is how they feel as if all of these are reactionary to something that happened. If you could discuss that, because I mean, it does feel very reactionary, even though they are very common sense things that probably should have been in place, and like they all make sense. Like I can't really. There is no, in my opinion, there is no argument against anything that Georgia has done. Even the water bottle thing, like it's not that you can't have water. It's just that people wearing a big R and a big D for Democrat, cannot just walk up and give you a water bottle. Cannot just walk up and give you a water bottle. So like, I mean, these are all common sense.
Well, I think, okay, like here, like I remember we were working a poll. It was like a Saturday, and it wasn't from like the Democrat Party, but it was like, I don't know, Voters for Democrats. It was like one of their subsidiaries. They had food trucks out there passing out free food to all the voters and posting it all over social media saying, look, if you come out to Burn Mill voting location, go vote, but also get your free food here. And I think that's what this part of the law is trying to prevent. It's not, oh, I can't go give my grandma water. It's more of, oh, you want water? Well, here's a water bottle with my candidate sticker on it, and you need to vote for this or you're not getting the water bottle. Like, that's what it's preventing.
Yeah,
right,
and I'll say this, as far as reactionary, that's how laws are intended, and I don't think there should be a partisan intent, but you're able as lawmakers to observe how the process is being done and make it better. That's the point of our form of government. We want to look how things are done and continue to make it better. Like you said, there was nothing wrong with the Georgia law. A lot of these people that criticized the Georgia law didn't read the bill, and now they've publicly admitted it. In fact, Stacey Abrams is doing a 180 because she costed at the MLB AllStar Game, left Georgia, costed them, I think the projections were $100 million into their community. That's funds you cannot get back, and that makes a difference in the economic impact of the state, of the town, and for the citizens in the community.
I mean, we had something like that happen in Charlotte. We lost
NCAA,
that basketball thing, where they shoot the ball.
Well, and the Republican convention.
Yeah. Well, that was.
I will say, I thought someone made a good point. That's interesting that MLB pulled the AllStar Game, which is going to provide what you say, like $100 million to Atlanta, which is a large African American community. Moved
like
it
85%.
Yeah, it's crazy high. Moved it to, I think, like Denver, Colorado, which is like crazy majority white community. And it's like, okay, so you've moved it to provide money and jobs to African Americans because of voting laws that you're claiming are discriminating against African Americans. Like, you're not helping them by claiming that, like, it's just kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah. It's a podcast I listen to. It's this Christian comedian, and he's gone super woke, but he's really funny, and he's like Black and talks a lot about like Black churches and Black experience. So it's funny to me. But anyway, they were talking about what happened in Georgia, and they even admitted like that's kind of tough because, for example, Will Smith also pulled out his show.
I saw that.
How it hurts Will Smith, or how Will Smith hurt people, is the people who could have been working for him were Black people, and those Black people could have put money back into the economy. Like, and they were saying how like it's kind of like a give and a take, like which one. But I personally think like the reality of the situation is what's going to help Black people, what's going to help people in general is money. Like doing the little like, being upset over X, Y, and Z is not going to help. What's going to help is money. You took money away from people. Like, that's what I think is really, like, money and power. So, you know, all these people leaving, so all these major things that could have helped the economy grow, leaving Atlanta is not helping anyone. Like, it doesn't even make, and here's the other thing too, that's I think the most important thing, it's not going to change a single thing. The Georgia thing is going to happen. The Georgia thing is already signed in. Literally, it changes nothing. Like, he's not going to, like, yeah.
That's, yeah. I will add on to that too. And because I'll be honest with you, people who are saying these voter ID laws are racist are all white. I've never seen an African American person really claiming like being, like, I don't know. I've never seen someone who's like actually in, like, because they're claiming it's African American low income communities. I've never seen someone from these communities as the spokesperson for saying these voter ID laws are racist. Me and my community can't get them. You know?
That's a very good point.
And I want to say one thing. Here in North Carolina, Senator Dave Craven said that they were trying to put $5 million into the appropriations budget so that more IDs can be provided to folks that cannot afford them, regardless of, you know, where you come, like, regardless of race. And guess who had the biggest issue with it? Democrats had the biggest issues. And also, I'll say this, you know, the MLB commissioner, Marco Rubio, made a good point. He's also a member of Augusta National Golf Club. According to Victoria, I think she'll agree, one of the best golf clubs in the country.
It's like the elite golf course. Like, Condoleezza Rice is a member there. A lot of the presidents were members there. Like, this is like elite of elite. And I hate to say it, I don't think they started allowing African Americans on the course until like the 1980s. And it's in Georgia. So why aren't these like, and like, this is like where all the CEOs and like everyone, like anyone who's anyone's a member there. So why are they leaving Augusta National? Why are they not pulling their memberships? Why aren't they boycotting Augusta National for being in Georgia?
Yeah, that's the question. So it reeks of hypocrisy, to quote Marco Rubio. And I think he should, you know, give up his Augusta National golf membership, which, bet you anything, he will not do.
No, of course not.
Like Marco Rubio, like the...
Okay, you said it wrong. So Senator Marco Rubio called out MLB commissioner for being a member at Augusta National.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, why does he have membership? Doesn't he live in Florida?
Baby, you made it sound like it was like the same person.
Wait, what?
You said Marco Rubio, the MLB commissioner.
No. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, that's why I came out.
I didn't call out the commissioner. I thought I said that. I'm sorry.
But
no. I get what you're saying now. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of hypocrisy in general on topics like this, because I think most of this is in fear or in the vein of trying to virtue signal. I think a lot of it is just virtue signaling. I think a lot of it is people, they just want to, and you know, there's people, I think people at the top honestly could not care less. I don't even think people at the top have like, who care about Republican versus Democrat at all. But I do think there are people who are genuinely like just us regular people, maybe a step ahead of us, that genuinely do care. Like, I do think there are some people who just don't know about the Georgia law and are like, man, I don't want my friends and families to be disenfranchised. And it's virtue signaling to appease those people. But I genuinely think the reason why people like the CEOs and rich people, they don't care. And you know, this could just be me speculating. I feel like when you reach a certain level of wealth, like, I don't know, I feel like you just stop caring about so many things that we peasants down here get all fretted over.
Yeah, I was gonna add something. I completely like blinked on it.
Georgia, CEOs,
Georgia voting,
golf.
I don't know.
Rich people.
Billionaires.
Oh,
I remember now. Thank you. Okay, so in 2016, the Democrats claimed that the election was stolen and that Russia infiltrated the election. Donald Trump was not meant, like, he did not win fairly president. They went 4 years saying that's not my president. Joe Biden wins. No issues with the voting system. But Republicans are claiming now that something was wrong. And in my opinion, I think there's actual evidence in 2020 to show that, okay, something did not add up. I mean, I'll be frank, in Sebastian's seat, 100,000 voters consistently voted over 10 years. This year, it increased by 20%. 120,000 people voted in his district. And I was like, huh, that's sus. Did I use that right?
Yeah, that's the right way to use sus.
That's sus. Sebastian was the only one that overlapped with 3 county commissioner seats in Guilford County that were up, and they were trying to flip those seats. And they won all 3 somehow, and it was a lot more voters than ever before. So I do think we do have issues. And here's my thing with Democrats. Look, you claimed in 2016 the election was not fair. There's fraud in it. But 2020 is perfectly fine and safe. So if you truly believe Joe Biden won the presidency, if you truly believe that every single person who won their seat actually won their seat, then why not have voter ID? Why not just make sure we're being safe? Like, why not put those precautionary measures in? That's my message to the Democrats. Why not put precautionary measures in if your candidates truly won like you claiming they won?
Yeah, it's much like the districts. They say that Republicans hyper-partisanly gerrymandered the district.
That's one thing that I just really don't understand. I'm gonna flip the table. Why is this happening? Okay.
So you don't understand the whole gerrymandering argument, which I feel like that's a whole nother day.
I didn't even say that. I was saying I don't understand why, if you think that, like, why everyone doesn't want just a really safe election. Like, even if you don't think there was fraud, why wouldn't you just want it to be safe just in general? That's
exactly.
What I was
well, guys, no, it's okay. We passed over one major point too, that the majority of these Democrats that are opposed to voter ID laws also want a COVID passport as proof that you've had the COVID vaccine.
How did we
that's such a good point.
Yes.
So what's up with that? Speak millennial, they need a grip because they can't have it both ways, man. And look, and for the record, I think the majority of conservatives would be more okay with the COVID passport if we could stop wearing the mask if we've had the vaccine. Like, seriously, like, okay, give us, like they're saying it provides immunity to COVID. Well, if you have the passport, show your passport and don't wear a mask anymore. Have like that increases confidence that the vaccine's effective and it actually works. They gave Hannity a very hard time for that. Or it was Tucker Carlson, actually. They gave Tucker Carlson a hard time for that because all he did was ask a simple question, which is, if the vice president, if Fauci, and if Joe Biden have been vaccinated, why are they walking around with double mask? That kind of provides a really interesting
lack
dynamic
of confidence.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're seeing such a drop in the vaccinations.
And they said this. I just want to say this. Dr. Fauci, who I guess is supposedly the best scientist in the world, he said, I think that's irresponsible of Tucker to ask that question. The whole premise behind science is ask hard questions so we can find answers to those hard questions. Doing the scientific method, which is you have a hypothesis, you test the hypothesis, then you put it out for scrutiny and for other people to test, and then you reevaluate your analysis. Well, the woke culture of Dr. Fauci and Joe Biden said that whatever they do is the real science, whatever Republicans do is fake science, and that's just don't ask us any questions. That's not science.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I know we're getting off topic, but with the whole they're claiming that, okay, well, we're not sure if people who've been vaccinated can still carry the virus. Isn't that the whole point of the vaccine?
Right.
Shouldn't this have been determined during the testing period?
Yep.
This is the testing period. Okay, let me stop. But yeah, no, that the whole thing is a little sketch, in my opinion.
You can say it's a little sus. We're trying to be more millennial and hip.
It's a little sus.
It's a little sus.
You're right.
We're trying to be more Gen. Is it Gen Z or Gen X? Which one's the one right behind? Or the youngest?
Is definitely us.
We're millennials. I'm the last millennial.
Below
1995 is the last
Gen
millennial. So it's Gen Z. We're trying to be more Gen Z-ish here. Sus.
Okay.
Yeah. Then
you're trying too hard now, Victoria.
I'm trying too hard.
Like, yeah, no cap.
Oh my God, Mal.
No cap.
Okay, sorry guys. So we're going on a little bit of a rant here, but okay. So Mal, you will not believe this, and I think the viewers will find this entertaining. So I tweeted Sebastian King NC. If you want to follow my Twitter, I do some fire tweets. But this representative Nadler said this: "We're not packing the Supreme Court, we're unpacking it." And I retweeted it, and I just put the cap emoji.
And what does that mean?
And Victoria didn't know what it meant, and she's been trying to figure out all day what cap means.
Okay.
Tell me what cap means. Do you know?
Yes. Okay. So cap is what the young people say when they mean lying. So cap literally translates to lying. Like the word. So like if I said
Sebastian looks good today.
We're
that's
the
cap.
Best, no, that'd be.
I voted for Joe Biden. That's
I respond to that. But I'm gonna use my example really quick. If I said, we're to say Those Other Girls is the best podcast that you'll ever listen to, no cap. That's like Those Other Girls is the best. Like I'm not lying. Like it's the best podcast.
So or another way to use it is Those Other Girls are the #1 podcast on Apple iTunes.
That's mean.
I'm just joking.
You're just jealous.
I'm jealous.
Give us a couple of years. We can make some sort of #1 list.
But that's actually an appropriate time to say like and follow Those Other Girls and subscribe so they can be the #1 podcast because they're trying very hard to make that happen.
Yep. We're working our butts off. But all right, I think we'll lose you again now.
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up. In other words, we believe in safe, secure. We believe in fair, safe,
secure elections.
Sorry, someone else do it.
We believe in fair, safe, secure elections.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Anything anybody want to add?
I'll just add one last point because the Democrats like to say this a lot, that we want to suppress the vote. Well, North Carolina had record numbers of voting. President Donald J. Trump was, reelected by the state of North Carolina. He won the electoral votes of North Carolina. We have majorities in both chambers, and we swept the Supreme Court races in our state and all Court of Appeals, all the judicial races as well. So to finish with the millennial talk and Gen Z talk, Dems, that's cap. We're perfectly fine with allowing everyone who wants to vote to vote. We encourage them to get out and vote, have their voices heard. Let's just do it safe and securely.
Yes, and your vote matters. Paul Newby won by 401 votes. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to Those Other Girls with Mallory and friends. Our this month's donation is to Lily North's We Don't Need Abortion to Succeed billboard. It is on our website. She was the episode before this. You should take a listen to it. We talk about the billboard. We talk about the amazing message and how much of a difference this is going to make. So head over to our website and click the link. It is imperative that we help her with this. $5 here, $10 there can truly make a difference.
What's her goal? Do you know?
Her goal is $4,000. And she's at 900 something as of 4/15, 9:30 at 9:31 p.m. April 15th probably makes more sense for me to say. Yeah. So she has quite a ways to go, but I do think if everyone listening can donate $5 here, share it. If you can't donate, share it with your friends. We're going to continue to share it on our pages and all that jazz. All right, y'all. You have a good rest of whatever day it is you listen to this.
Bye, guys.